brief technological glitch. Something happened. I'm not exactly sure what, because I don't know anything about all of that. So we're back.
We're trying something new.
Welcome, everybody. Yeah,
Let's
it's
try again.
early days, and so we're just getting started with this. We're starting to get the hang of it, I think, hopefully. But we wanted to make some of this content available. We feel like a lot of people are not necessarily eligible for our sales shows, and I feel like that may be a slight deterrent for people to lose interest in what we are talking about. In fact, a lot of our subject material that we cover after the show is relevant and could potentially help you grow your plants better, and we want to be able to bring that type of content to you in a format that is slightly less sale based.
Yeah.
Often we do that to supplement our sale shows, and it is a really nice, I think it's a nice way for us to touch base with our community and be able to bring that type of, hey, what's going on with your plants, what's going on with my plants, let's share, let's discuss, let's find out what is successful and what is not successful, but let's discuss that together and let's have that kind of communication where we can share our successes and failures and help each other learn more about what we're doing and how we can succeed at it.
Yeah. If you're not aware of our business model, we've always really focused on that we don't want to gatekeep information. We really enjoy growing our plants here as a business and just as hobbyists growing Hoyas. And we want to make sure that we give anything that we've learned from the community back to the community so that everyone has the same access to information that maybe makes it a little bit easier. We are very specific in saying that we are not experts. We are just experts in growing our plants.
Yeah.
And we like to share that information because it may be beneficial to you. It is not the only way to grow plants. It is not the only way to grow Hoyas.
Yeah.
But it is something that we think that some people can benefit from because a lot of people grow in a very similar condition to us.
Yeah.
We do grow in the Midwest. We're located in Michigan and we grow in ambient humidity here. So our plants aren't pampered and they have to be pretty hardy so that they can grow and thrive and go off into the world and be better plants for everybody else. So along the way, we've learned a lot of techniques and things that we think are helpful in growing. And we're hopeful that you guys will find that information beneficial. That's why we're here.
Yeah, we like to share. It is something that we find is something we can add to the community that is, I feel, is somewhat lacking. Everyone does what they do, but there's not a lot of people discussing it and talking about how they have success with what they're growing and how they have tried things that didn't work. And so I think that that's something we can have a little humility and share our successes and our failures, and we can all learn from that and go forward with some level of, hey, we learned something here today. We've discovered something today that we didn't know before. Yeah. And hopefully today we can bring something to the community that we haven't discussed before. We have a few new things to discuss towards the middle / end of the presentation. But let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, we thought about like what should our first topic be here on YouTube, and I think one of the biggest differences that has made plant growing successful for us was learning how to navigate chemistry on the plant side of growing. The additives that you can add to your plants for good growth, the water chemistry side of it, and all of that. It's a lot of subject matter to cover, so we thought we'd break it down today and we'd talk more about the houseplant supplementation. Now, we grow Hoyas now as a business, but we have grown many different species over the years. Caleb was a landscaper for a long time, so we have a good amount of experience in outdoor plants, in ornamental plants, and then
I've also been just a hobby gardener too for many years. My parents were gardeners. As a kid, I learned, and it's just kind of in my blood, really. It's just plants have always been around me in some way. But come wintertime, there's a real craving to have plants in your life still, and indoor gardening just sort of, it fit with who I am as a person. I love it. I have terrariums and plants all around me in my home, and also now have a whole garage full of beautiful plants, which I love. It's a passion I've always had.
And we like talking about them.
Absolutely.
So that's how we ended up here. We're going to talk a little bit about how we formulated our regimen for supplementing our plants with fertilizers and other additives. We're going to talk a little bit about why each of those supplements is beneficial. And, if you have questions along the way, if you want us to cover a certain thing or talk about something, just let us know in the chat below. We're happy to chat about it.
Yeah.
We tend to go on tangents, so just be patient with us.
There's definitely that. Now, a good place to start, this is obviously not the container that this came in, but this is a 2020 general fertilizer. This particular one is Jack's.
Fertilizer always comes in a ratio mix. So you'll have three main ingredients: potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And it's always in a ratio of X versus X versus X.
Yeah.
The one we use
So
is
NPK,
called a full strength 20-20-20.
20-20-20. So 20N, 20K,
P.
and P. All of those. So this is Jack's. You'll recognize it. It's very similar to a Miracle Grow type general overall fertilizer. Okay, this is a really great place to start. This gives you a lot of your micronutrients and stuff like that. This gives you your all of those NPK, but it gives you a very stable, bacteria prone, whereas like sometimes you can do organic fertilizers like worm castings and things like that. That's not necessarily free of bacteria. So you can cause a lot of fungal outbreaks in your pots, and there can be a lot of detriment to using
It's harder to
organic
regulate the
fertilizer
ratio too.
in potted plants in your home, okay?
Yeah.
It's different from growing in your garden, your natural soil, and things like that. There's organisms in there that help to break that down and compost those materials and make that much more palatable for your plants. But in a potted container, it's definitely very different. You're controlling all those elements. So I like to start with a good fertilizer that is, it's synthetic, but it's reliable.
Yeah.
So it gives you those nutrient quantities without any risk of bringing in foreign bacteria or things that might cause other problems to your plants.
What do each of those ingredients do? Nitrogen is really known for adding the lush, leafy growth that really supports.
Necessary for leaf growth
Yeah.
and stem growth too, but it's a big part of the growth part
And
of
the
a
green
plant.
of the plant.
Absolutely.
Phosphorus helps kind of with root development, making good undersoil
It's a huge part of the
sturdiness,
plant.
and
Half the plant grows underground, and believe it or not, your roots actually need to breathe. They need water. They need nutrients. They need a lot of things that you don't really necessarily always consider.
that is the plant. The plant is underground, really.
Absolutely.
It's the above is what we see, but the health of it is underneath.
Absolutely.
So, phosphorus also plays a really big role in production of fruits and flowers. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And a lot of the species we grow in Hoyas, that makes a very significant difference. And then potassium is a big supporter of the plant health overall, making it resistant to illness and the different stressors that can come to a plant.
Yeah. There's a few of the supplements that we use and we'll be discussing later that are used in that realm of stress protection or as an additive that helps to prevent stress from affecting the plant negatively. Excuse me. So there's a lot that you can do. I believe that there's a lot of science that's been done in the cannabis industry that has added to horticultural knowledge. That type of science and discovery has helped those chemicals, those products be available to us home gardeners. And whether you're growing cannabis or you're growing aroids or you're growing Hoyas or whatever particular plant is your fancy, I like ficuses, for example, ficus trees. They happen to love all of these nutrients as well. And so all of these plants tend to thrive off of these basic nutrient supplements that when you filter your water and your city water comes completely stripped of all of the nutrients and all of the minerals that are in there, you have to add back what's important for your plant health. And that is, I think, an important element of the success that we've had with growth of plants is being able to put back the things that the plant needs while eliminating some harmful things like chlorinamine and things that are used for municipal water purification. That's difficult to get around because it's necessary, but that's not the best thing for your plants is to just put tap water on them. So one of the things that we hadn't discussed prior, but we also filter our water.
Yeah.
And so in filtering that water, we use a RODI system, which is a reverse osmosis deionization. And so there's a chemical process that happens after a mechanical filtration on a micron level. So there's a lot of filtering, and then there's a chemical process that happens, and then that water is released into our system where we then we store it, and then we mix these nutrients back into the water. As it's been stripped, now it has nothing in it. It's completely empty of all minerals and nutrients, and also, like I said, those harmful municipal disinfectants and antibacterial type chemicals. They're not great for your plant. Your plant doesn't love fluoride. It doesn't love chlorinamine. And that's all in your municipal water. The RODI
Certain species are going to
filtration,
be more sensitive to those.
yeah, Hoyas typically don't care about that.
And overall, like plants are very resilient, right? They have managed to go for millions of years here on this planet because they're very resilient to, exposure to a lot of things. What we're talking about is optimizing their growth, trying to make it so they will give us the biggest, the most pretty, the most lush. Like that is what is needed here.
Yeah, I'll be fully honest. If we weren't keeping vivariums with dart frogs, we probably wouldn't be RODI filtering our water still at this point. So there is a reason why it's completely necessary for us to filter our water.
It's very necessary in calatheas and begonias.
Yeah. When we started out, that was a big part of what we were growing, and it was beneficial in that stage. We've just continued on with it because we set ourselves up to do it, and now it benefits all of our plants, even though it's not entirely necessary to filter all that out.
Let's talk a little bit, how did we find that fertilizer? Like what process did we go through, and what did we try that we didn't like?
We tried Miracle Grow. I was just not entirely a fan of it altogether. I felt like the results were not great, and it wasn't the same. We explored a few different options, and I found that Jack's was one that was readily available at almost all of our garden centers, and you could buy a nice gallon bucket of it. It was a substantial amount you could buy, and that lasted for a while.
Cost effective.
It was very cost effective, and we've never had bacterial outbreak of any sort. It's always very controlled.
Yeah, the product is always what we expect.
Delivery of what you expect. Yeah, so it's been a really good, steady, sturdy pillar of our success. Now, there are other things that we've added in that we learned about through growth of other plants. For example, cannabis. Cannabis has become legal here in Michigan, 10 years ago? Probably. Something like that. So a lot of people are doing garden grows in their basement or in their whatever, and there's science being done to show that some of these additives that are used, for example, CalMag, let's start there. This is one that we've seen some pretty good results from. This helps to develop really nice cuticles on the leaves. It grows, it helps to add a lot of good qualities to a plant, particularly if the plant is grown in coconut. Coconut has a way of stripping those chemicals from the water supplement, and so you need to over add or to over supplement in order for the plant to have some available. You have to give more than it typically says. Coconut can be, it's kind of a magnet for calcium and magnesium, and that's something that your plants need for healthy growth, but a lot of people don't realize that they're using coconut coir or coconut chunks, and that's kind of working against the process.
That was a big part that we realized coming into the houseplant side of growing plants was how much coconut core, coconut chunks, coconut.
It plays a huge role.
It's a very big potting media because it's renewable resource.
Yes.
So there are definitely benefits to using it, but a lot of growers don't realize that there are also some downsides to using it that you need to be aware of if you are using it to supplement for.
Yeah.
Calcium is really important for cell strength and for cell division to make sure that's all happening appropriately. And if you can't access it, you're going to see a lot more warped leaves and misshapen tips of your leaves and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep in mind. Magnesium is also very much about the structure of the leaf. You'll see a lot of twisting and misshapen, weak leaves.
New leaves. Yeah. As they come in, they can have like a claw shape and they can curl up somewhat, and that's a magnesium deficiency that can exhibit in that way. That's something that you can see as a gardener and say, oh, this is showing a sign that I need to add more magnesium to my mix because it's showing signs of deficiency.
And those are not things that are readily available in most medias that you would have, or most fertilizers that don't have micronutrients in them.
Yeah, most medias you're going to find are inert, and therefore if your water is inert because you've stripped it of all nutrients, and your soil is inert, that plant has no source of those nutrients whatsoever until you add it in the mix. And that also is contingent on the pH of the mix. If you don't have the right acidity, that plant can't uptake those nutrients, and so therefore you want to make sure that you're adding something like this. This is called earth juice. It's a high Brix molasses horticultural mix, and it is derived from sugars, but it helps to bring the pH down to a point where it is actually allowing the plant to uptake the nutrients as the pH swings from a 4, 4.5 up to a 7, and that plant has an opportunity at all of those different pH levels to uptake different nutrients. It's very important and very understated, I think, how important that pH is to certain nutrients don't absorb into the plant. The plant can be sitting there soaking in it and it's unavailable because the pH is wrong. So it's something that a lot of people don't really understand it, but it is something that can be easily remedied by adding some of this additive. It drops the pH. It gives a little bit of extra potassium. It's a really good
And
thing
the
to
sugars
just
help
add
really
in.
support a lot of the microbiome in the soil too.
Absolutely.
The beneficial bacteria feed on those sugars and therefore make more chemicals bioavailable to the plant roots.
Which brings us to our next topic, which is something that we've initially tried, and it's something we haven't used in a while other than in our vivariums, but this is mycorrhiza. So this is a package of little pellets that are inoculated with a mycelial inoculant. It's mushrooms, basically, mushroom seeds. And so you're going to inoculate your plants with mycelia, which coats and extends the roots and allows them to exchange nutrients much better in your soil media. But this is designed for use in containers where you are using filtered water. You cannot put fluoride, you cannot put chlorinamine on this and expect that it's going to survive. So your RODI water becomes more important when you want to encourage this mycorrhizal growth.
Or beneficial bacteria. There are multiple on the market as well that do a very similar thing to the mycorrhiza, which help break down different minerals and things like that to make them more available to the roots to take up.
Your microbacterials, that I can't say for sure whether or not they can't withstand the chloride or chlorinamine and
Well, I'm
fluoride.
pretty sure they couldn't.
They probably wouldn't enjoy it. But some of them might survive. I can't say for sure. Now I know that the mycorrhiza, this does not like that type of stuff. So if you're going to use this type of thing, don't put tap water on it, because that's kind of defeating the purpose. You're putting this in there and then killing it immediately. So
what does this do for the media breakdown?
It does a certain level of weaving through the media, but I think that what it does is it makes that media a little bit more of a receptive sponge. Your roots will grow through so much of the media. The mycelia wraps around the root and extends its reach around each root segment, but then in addition to the root, on the end, it actually reaches out further, and so it creates a larger network of roots. Consider this as like a root booster, but it's actually an organism that's like extensions on your roots. That's kind of how I view this, is that this is wrapping around the roots, but like reaching out much further. And sometimes mycorrhizal organisms can reach between trees through whole forests. They communicate with each other. They discuss things about how they can defeat pests that are attacking on one side of the forest. The other side has built immunities by the time the pest reaches there, because the mushrooms help them communicate underground. That's mycorrhizal influence.
Do you have to be worried about mushrooms?
Not worried, but occasionally blessed. I have seen mushrooms grow in my terrariums, and it's always such a cool thing. Often they're yellow ink caps is the species that they tend to use.
So it's a bright yellow tiny mushroom.
It's a bright yellow, powdery looking. It's super cool. And so when they do start popping, it's definitely not a sad day at all. If you see a couple of pot fungi, mushrooms growing in your pots of plants. Not a problem at all. Maybe you want to evaluate you may be overwatering just a skosh.
How do you tell if it's a beneficial fungus in your pot versus a non? Is there non-beneficial funguses?
I would say in a potted plant that would be pretty rare.
Okay.
The only one that some people would consider might be beneficial on the aesthetics is that pot fungus, where you get like little white dots along the soil. It's not harmful to the plant at all. It is a mycorrhizal relationship between the plant and the soil and the mushroom, but it's generally not a fruit bodying mushroom. Doesn't manifest in that way, and so you get like a little slime on the edge of the cup. It's not harmful at all to the plant, and it's actually not a problem at all. You would think that having mushrooms in the soil cup would deteriorate your soil and break down those components much faster. I've not found that to be the case. I found plants we used it for in the past have been very healthy and happy. So what we're going to do...
You've seen those mushrooms growing?
We're going to add this. We're going to add this to some of our mother plants, and we're going to add this to some of our stock plants, and we're going to see some side by side, and then we'll hopefully have another video that we can follow up, and we can show some of those hopefully positive results and show why you might want to use a product such as this. There are many on the market. This is just one we grabbed, but just so you know, this is something that's new to the collection that we're going to start adding, that we have previously used on our personal plants, but this is something we're going to try.
We talked about the CalMag and the molasses briefly, real quick. What do you recommend for the average grower as far as use of those? Is that something they should be using daily, only when they see a problem? Like, how do you recommend someone who's never touched those before grow?
That's a good question. For the fertilizer, I use that, let's just say you're mixing a gallon, because most people will understand that on that ratio. A gallon, I use about a teaspoon of the Jax mix. So the 20-20-20 fertilizer mix, a teaspoon of this in a gallon is a good starting point. I put that every time. Every watering. I also add this molasses every watering. Now, you don't need much, and as you can see, I have a giant jug of it. We don't mix a small amount when we water. I have a 9-gallon mixing tank, and so I take 2 pumps out of this, which is 2 ounces for 9 gallons. So if you extrapolate that out, it's
a tablespoon,
half of a teaspoon basically in a gallon. It's not very much at all, but that little bit has a good result. And the CalMag I will do every other watering. So this is not one that you have to put every single time, but it is very beneficial to the plant to do, but it doesn't need it every single time. So I've cut back on using this. I used to use it every single time, and I found that was fouling my soil much quicker. It was making my soil it felt like I needed to replace it more often. So I just think it's over nutrient. When you do that, you start putting too much into the soil, and it starts having a detrimental effect on the way the soil particles react with each other, and it starts to become kind of muddy rather than individual particles that dry out and become very fluffy and light. So if you put too much of any kind of nutrient, I think that can be detrimental, but if you're putting the right amount, then it is absorbed by the plant, it's used in that proportion, and it doesn't add up in the soil as much.
Interesting.
So, we've had some recent questions, we've had some recent inquiries. There's a new product that we're going to try. I've never used it, and we've done some recent studies. We've learned about how it can develop very healthy stems and very healthy leaf growth and stronger cuticles and all around just healthier, more vigorous plant growth.
We try to encourage here.
I'm enjoying that idea. So I'm looking into this. The more I look at it, the more I'm considering this. It's called Silica Blast. This is not a thing that I've used before.
It's a silicone additive.
I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see how this helps our plants, if it helps to do better.
So we first started hearing about this in the air-raid world. A lot of people in the Monsteras side of the world were talking about that it was making their whites whiter on their variegated Monsteras, and we were just like, that sounds
Like hokum.
Hokum, yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, so we didn't pay much attention, but we've recently had more people that we trust their growing habits really show that they've had some good success with it. So we did some more scientific look into it, and it really does support really good, a healthy, sturdy cell growth, and therefore sturdier stems, less likely to be, pushed over in a strong wind or something like that.
Stronger leaves,
Yeah.
less likely to blast,
Yeah.
less susceptible to extreme environmental
Stronger
conditions.
cuticles, which
Yeah.
would explain why so many people think that it helps with the white of their Hoya or their monsteras, and why they're not getting that brown formation as quickly. It's because it's really just developing a much stronger cuticle on the leaf to help keep that humidity in the leaf, so that
Yeah.
you're not getting that evaporation that
If you
causes
think
that
about it,
browning.
those white parts of a variegated leaf are highly susceptible. It is the softest and most tender part of the leaf, and if there is going to be a part that's going to succumb and become brown and crispy from environmental situation,
Yeah.
it'll be that variegated part of the leaf. So it does stand to reason that silica helps the plant overall be more healthy, then it might help to preserve some of those variegated leaves in spite of their fragility
And
and
we've not seen that
susceptibility.
same thing in Hoyas. Like, they don't tend to have that
Generally
variegation
not.
browning.
Generally not. Incrusata is one exception to that, where they
Yeah,
tend to
that's
be
true.
a little bit more sensitive on the variegated parts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one that I have an eye towards testing with the silica to see if that's something that could be helped there. So definitely it's one that I want to try out on a few propagations and also on a few mother plants, and then hopefully we'll have some follow-up
Yeah,
content.
we'd love to hear your guys' experiences. If you have a plant that you can tell us about that you used, before and after, what it was like for you and what kind of habits you saw change in that. We'd love to hear about it so we know what to watch for.
It all adds to the science.
Yeah.
We're trying to do a little experiment here ourselves, but if there's more data out there that you guys can help share, it's appreciated. So reach out and let us know what your experience is with silica, or if you've happened to try this mycorrhizal additive. Like I said, this is not the one we tried before, but we're going to try this one this time and see how it goes. But again, we're going to do plants side by side, and hopefully we'll have some results to show you about here's the
Thanks.
plants that had it, here's the plants that didn't have it. And
Yeah, we're going to try to do, like you said,
Yeah.
a comparison, an actual study on it. I mean,
let's do
obviously
some
a very,
science.
very small study.
Let's
but
do a little bit of science.
what kind
and
of
let's
species
see.
do you think are best for that?
Like I said, I think Incrusata is a good candidate for the silica, because I do think that there's often
I think we should try something
burnt
with a
edges
soft
on
leaf too.
that.
Maybe like Hushkaliana.
Multiflora is another
Multiflora.
prime candidate
Yeah.
that would show immediate results.
Yeah.
Hushkaliana is another good one. Yeah, they have a strong variegation. They're not generally too susceptible to depletion like that, but it's definitely worth trying. I have a few variegated monsteras that I might give it a try on and see how that affects things. But what I'm understanding is there's no reason why you shouldn't use this on all your plants.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you should be selective about which ones you use it on, other than for the sake of a control experiment. But I think that in our research, there wasn't any reason why you should
Yeah, it
not
says
use
use
it on
half
anything.
to 1 teaspoon per gallon every watering or every other watering.
Yeah.
So it seems pretty safe to use.
So it's something we're going to try and experiment with and see if that does what it says it does. And if it does, I
Helps
think it
plants
could.
flourish in extreme environments. on
I
the
think
label.
that could add. It could find its way into our everyday regimen. If it works like it says it does, which we will see, and I will report. But that could find its way into our everyday watering schedule. And so far, it's been the reliable 3, the steady 3, all the while. If we add a few other things, I will say that, I'm open to that.
When I was doing some research for tonight's show, something else that came up that I don't know that we've talked about a whole lot, and I don't know if it's used in indoor gardening as much as outdoor, is iron or iron chelates. Is that something we have any experience with?
Not a positive experience. I bought some chelated iron and I killed a plant with it.
Oh no.
I think I just overdosed it.
Yeah.
Was the issue. It was like for a garden, and I used it on a plant, and I think I just put too much. And then I read that I did it wrong, so it was a little too much, a little too fast. It was what the issue was with there. But I may even still have that around.
Yeah. What is signs of an iron deficiency? Do you know?
Well, iron typically contributes to the chlorophyll development. So you'll get yellowing on the leaves, and that's something that's pretty typical in horticulture as well. So it's something I'm familiar with my landscaping experience. When you start to see a yellow boxwood or something like that, some ironite, sprinkle that down on the plant, and it slowly dissolves into the soil, and that does a real wonder for bringing those guys back from that slightly yellow, slightly chlorotic. If they're just getting well water, they're getting high mineral content, but they're not getting a lot of some certain minerals, and sometimes that's problematic. Sometimes well water is really high in iron. Sometimes it's really high in calcium. Sometimes it just varies where you're getting your well water. Here in Michigan, we have a very high water table. And so I have a friend who has a household they've lived in for 35 years, and they have a 3-foot deep well that's right in their front yard, right off their driveway. So if they're washing their car with the wrong kind of soap, their well gets poisoned. Like,
Wow.
that's how shallow that well is. And they've run a garden off of it. They run their whole entire household for 35 years. They've only had a shallow well because that's all that's necessary. So
I did find out too that in determining nutrient deficiencies can often be difficult to like pin down because they can show so many similar characteristics, like
Yeah.
yellowing of a leaf or
Curling
misshapen
of a
growth or
leaf,
something
yeah.
like that. But I did read that there's what they call mobile versus immobile nutrients, and the mobile nutrients are nitrogen, magnesium, and potassium, and they tend to show up deficiencies on the older leaves first, where immobile nutrients like calcium, iron, and boron tend to show up on the new growth.
I see.
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it gives you an insight to what you might be lacking,
start,
what you might
narrow
be
it
missing
down.
as it's growing along. But yeah, if all of a sudden your older leaves start yellowing and start showing signs, then you can say, okay, that's an indication of a lack of.
And you've told me before that nutrient deficiencies will often follow the vein pattern versus a pest problem.
Yeah.
Like that's a good way
Yeah.
to determine one over the other.
Yeah, pests don't often discern. They
Yeah.
don't really care. They'll munch right through. And like if you're getting a bite line from a thrip or something like that, that's a very distinct look.
Yellowing
and it goes
from, like-
right through the veins and doesn't really pay any attention to
Yeah.
that. Whereas if it follows the veins of the plant, you're talking about a vascular issue,
Systemic
potentially
issue.
systemic or fungal or something like that.
Yeah.
But you're looking at it following through the plant structure, the actual vascular flow of the plant. So it's just an indication of what might be the problem or might be causing the problem. There's definitely indicators that can kind of cross over. Sometimes a nutrient deficiency can look like a pest problem, or a pest problem can look like a nutrient deficiency. A lot of people will be like, what does my plant need? Does it need fertilizer? No, I'm sorry, that velvety philodendron is covered with spider mites. And so it's looking depleted because it's just absolutely infested with spider mites. A lot of people don't take that close of a look at their plants, and they just look at the yellow from across the room, and they know there's a problem. They just don't know what it is. If you look close enough, sometimes you can see that there's an obvious culprit there.
Well, and the hard part with nutrient deficiencies and correction of them is it's not immediate. You're not going to pour it on your plant and it's going to go ta-da.
Exactly.
You have to have like a few
Sometimes you're
weeks
waiting
of
for the
growth.
next leaf set to
Yeah.
grow to show the signs of development, and so it's working in the right direction. You're showing actual progress in your leaves as they progress, and now I can see these leaves are no longer giving me this deformed feature or this whatever's going on, this yellow spot all over.
And previous problems don't go away. Like if you had a misshapen leaf or a yellow, it's not generally going to correct itself.
Not if it's caused by something. If
Yeah.
there's something that's attacking your plant,
I mean, if it's like
or
a
if it's a
nutrient
nutrient
deficiency,
deficiency,
yeah.
you're going to get that to continue on until you correct the nutrient deficiency. If you're getting claw leaf, for example, your leaves are hooked in like this and it's doing really weird contortions, that is a sign of a magnesium deficiency. And if you don't correct that deficiency, it will continue to produce leaves that show that characteristic until the plant is satisfied and is healthy and is getting the correct amount of magnesium. And so it's something that you have to be attuned to as a grower, as a farmer. You have to see the issues that are happening and say, okay, how do I react and respond to that? Or what in the heck is going on there? How do I make that correct? Oh,
Oh, the
fantastic.
smell? Does it have a smell?
It
I
does
guess
smell
I
a little
I'm so
bit.
used to it.
Once you mix it into the water, it's not so bad. But yeah, the smell of it directly, it's quite pungent. I actually have it. We have a big container of it, but I have it on a pump, and so I can just administer it just like that. So I don't really get much of a whiff of it too much. It just quickly into the
I
mix.
never thought about it.
So I don't actually have to smell it that often. But yeah, it does smell a bit like a funky molassesy, sugary type of sweet smell.
Yeah, like a burnt sugar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, it is definitely a really good additive, and it's something I don't think a lot of people are discussing. We added it initially to bring out the color of our begonias, but also found that it's a good source of added potassium, which also it's just a really good healthy additive for your plants all around.
The pumps are huge. They're a game changer. They said that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I do think that makes a difference in keeping the grow space clean overall.
Absolutely.
Molasses is pretty sticky.
I'm not
trying
saying
to pour it out of a bottle.
A couple errant drips here and
Oh,
there,
yeah,
it does
but-
happen, but it's a lot easier to control when you have a dispenser spot, a pump that gives you 1 ounce per pump. You know exactly how much you're measuring. It definitely, I think it makes it a little easier to use.
I'm sure even on the smaller bottles you can find a pump for the not giant gallon size that we buy.
Yeah, it's about the whole size, and I think it actually would connect to a smaller bottle, like something like this. You just have to cut the stem down inside the straw to the right length. So if you just hold it up to the top of the bottle, measure the bottom of the straw, and kind of eyeball it to cut it on an angle, and then, but honestly, I think they're just an easy way to administer, and whether you use a half a
it's definitely
pump
easier
or
to measure.
you use a shot glass and pump it into the shot glass to measure it. They make those calibrated shot glasses that you can use. So again, I'm kind of tailoring this to a smaller batch quantity. I mix 9 gallons at a time, so I can put 3 pumps in there, no problem, and that's the right amount for me. But I'm mixing 9 gallons of water to water my plants, and I mix 3 of those per watering session. So I'm using a considerable amount of the stuff, and it adds up, but it's definitely a little easier if you have that way of
One of the things we've
dispensing.
always tried to focus on in our growing is to make things efficient.
Yes.
And try to streamline as much as possible.
You're going to have to do it all the time, weekly or monthly even. It's something that if you can make it convenient, it's a lot easier. I have valves on all my prop boxes. They all run into a single container where there's a sump pump. So when I do a water change, I just open up the valves and dump all the water. I turn off the power to everything, dump all the water, and I pump it out all with one motion and make that efficient so that I don't have to haul buckets of water to change out 10 gallons of water in each prop box. I have 3 prop boxes, so that's 30 gallons.
That brings up a good point, though, is how do you handle new plants, cuttings and rooting plants with these chemicals? Do they get that kind of treatment?
Well, we're gonna do an experimental.
The silica, I don't think there
batch
should
of
be a problem. But
those.
the calcium, magnesium, and the molasses, do you treat that? You don't put those in the cloners?
No.
No. Why
No.
not?
And I don't put the jacks in the cloner
Yeah.
either. Yeah, I use
Why
a
not?
lower grade fertilizer for the cloner. I also put a pH balance in there, and I also put a Clear Res, a product called Clear Res. I don't actually use their product, but I use Pool Shocker, which is technically the equivalent of that, but it is a chlorine additive, which helps the water in the prop boxes stay fresh for longer.
Why don't you put the jacks in there?
Jax is meant for a soil-based application, and if you put that in the water, it's too much nitrogen, it's too much potassium, it's too much phosphorus, and so it pollutes the water and it makes the water go foul sooner.
It will burn the baby roots, right?
It burns the roots, and it just doesn't develop good, healthy early stock. It develops on a very low-grade fertilizer. Those roots are looking for nutrients. They're growing. They're searching, and I think that helps them to grow healthier young roots. And when you introduce them to soil, then you start giving them the full regimen of fertilizer, and then they really start to take off and grow really well.
Now, on the cuttings that you just put right into soil, they get the normal formulated water, right? You do use
Right
the
from
jacks
the
and
start.
everything right from the start.
Yeah, once they touch down in the soil, we don't put the training wheels on. Now, I will allow them to dry out thoroughly in between waterings because I do think it's very important for those young roots to still be able to dry out, because in the prop box they do have a chance to do some pretty good drying out. I give them 20 minutes of off time or 19 minutes of off time for the 1 minute of on run time where the pumps actually spray the roots underneath. So there's a definite ratio of time there where they have a chance to drip dry and sit there and dry. That helps them to grow much thicker, more robust roots. And so when they go right into the soil, they're ready to take full nutrient. And from then on, they hit the ground running. And often we see active growth very soon after they reach the cups. Often before I see full root development, we've already seen active root growth or aerial growth on the plant. So again, it's a lot of that double evaluation of, is the plant growing, but also is it well rooted? Because sometimes just getting a little bit of nitrogen, a little bit of some, nutrients to the plant, it starts taking off and growing before it's actually fully established with its roots. Those are the criteria that make them a good sellable plant. So I think that that's one of those things that we tend to hold them back a little bit extra, give them that extra boost, and then when we release them, they're ready to go and they take off and grow well in our customers' care, because that's the goal, that's the objective. So getting a good start is key. Making sure you have good nutrients from the start, I think, is important, but too early, that can cause damage to the early development of those
If we
roots.
put molasses in the cloners, it would throw off the pH pretty significantly.
Yeah, and I think it would cause that water to go foul much sooner.
You have to change it out more often.
With the chillers, I'm able to keep that water in there for roughly a month, give or take, on each cloner. If I was to put molasses in there, I'd probably have to change it out at least weekly, if not more. Okay. So as you're talking about a much quicker cycle where it's that pH swing where you introduce it at a certain level, and as things develop, it changes the pH. And therefore, it's going to end up at a 7 where that prop box does not operate well at that range.
Yeah. Well, water
it wants
chemistry
to be at 5, and
is
that's ideal.
important.
Yeah, it's super
I think that should be
important.
the talk we do next, probably, here on YouTube.
One time in junior high, I took a class, an entire semester on water. And I thought, this is so boring, there's no way they're going to be able to fill an entire semester with content on water. When I tell you, we did not even touch the surface of what water means to people or humans, or like just
We're a
plants
water-based planet.
altogether. Like, water is so important. It's everything.
Yeah.
So like, there's so much more content than a semester on water.
We could fill an hour talking about water pretty quickly.
There's a lot to know, and a lot that a lot of people take for granted when they just pour some tap water into their watering pot and don't really think too much about just pouring it on their plants. And you can have a limited amount of success with that. I'm not saying you can't. Many people, that's all they do. What I'm saying is, if you want to take it to a different level, if you want to bring your watering your plant growth to a different level, here's how we do what we do. And certain things I can tell you how they work. Other things, I'm going to tell you what our experiment comes out with. And from there, we'll learn together. But I think that that's an important thing to understand, is why do we do the things we do? And why don't we do the things we don't do? We filter our water. Why do we do that? Well, we like control. I like to be able to make sure I have what's in there that I want in there, and I want to make sure that what I don't want in there isn't in there. So just in case I'm watering sensitive plants or sensitive frogs, they're not being harmed by what's in my water. So for that reason, we do what we do. Everyone has their own evaluation. Everyone has their own plant load or bio load in their home, as you will. We have other things that we're growing around here that need that. Our carnivorous plants, they need very, very pure water with no minerals and no nutrients in it whatsoever, because they won't survive in tap water. Well, the frogs, they kind of facilitate that.
They can't be fertilized either. We have to not fertilize those.
No fertilizer and no nutrients in the water whatsoever. And that's why we continue to filter on that level, is because we have other species that require it. Now, we just happen to do it on the quantity that we can do it for all of our plants, and that happens to benefit us, but I'm not advocating that that's what you have to do.
I think we should plan for another deep dive into water. Maybe we'll do this again in a month. We'll try to do once a month for right now, and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. If there's other topics you want to cover, then let us know. And hopefully we can help build a little library of topics over here and the things that we try to usually incorporate in our sales talks, so that when people maybe don't have time to catch those sales or want to go a little bit deeper into the topic, we can point them over here and say, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
But we also want this to be a place of conversation. So if you want to have questions, we really enjoy having conversation with you guys about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and like I said, here is some content that's not sale based, because a lot of people want to participate in the content but don't have any interest in the sale. If you're not in the country, then you really have no interest in seeing what's for sale of plants you can't buy. And so separating that out and having those contents available in their different formats, I think, is beneficial. And I hope that that benefits people in some way, that you can come sit and chat with us about Hoyas, talk about your plant growth, talk about your plant care. And
we appreciate
if you're
you
interested,
coming.
then if you happen to be around, tune in for our Palm Street shows, and maybe you can buy some plants. So I do think that there's some benefit either way, but even if you can't participate in that level of what we do, I think there's some benefit for people to understand that, hey, listen, this is part of our not gatekeeping about what we do with our plants and how we have success with what we're growing. I want you to share that same experience. I want you to receive the plants that we grow and be able to give them the same care we do, or take your plants wherever you are and adjust it for your conditions and where you are. So if we help share what we're talking about and other people do the same, I think that it helps people to evaluate, hey, how should I do what I want to do? I've heard what everybody else does. Now I want to decide what's best for me and what works best in my condition.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all our
people. Are there
people.
questions you guys have? If you have questions, please let us know. We are, we like being over here, but we're obviously going to be back over on Palm Street tomorrow morning.
We can obviously always be reached on our Facebook
Facebook group.
Schlief Tropicals page as well.
Yeah.
A lot of great
Instagram.
stuff there, a lot of great content. So find us where you find us, but find us.
We'll be doing the same thing. Wherever you find us, we'll all be doing this. We'll always be doing the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. But thank you for joining us this evening. It's been a lovely time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming to support our first time over here.
Yeah. We appreciate being able to talk to some people about
to see some friendly faces.
What we're going to try and an experiment we're going to get into, and hopefully we'll get some good results, and then we'll be able to share even more.
Thank you. Okay, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. If not, catch us back here probably in about a month from now, maybe sooner if we can get our things together.
Yeah, you never know. With us, you never know.
Yeah.
We'll do what we can.
Enjoy your Valentine's Day. We hope you have a wonderful Saturday evening.
Happy St. Valentine's Day.
Have a great night.